Hi, and welcome to your Relax and Restore yoga class. I'm Colleen, and I'll be guiding your practice today. To get started, you'll need a little blanket roll or a bolster if you have one, a couple blocks, strap and pillow, anything else that you might like to have for your practice. And then to get started, we'll begin in a heart opening. So you can take your bolster or your blanket roll, make sure it's not too high, not too low. You can always adjust it. And you'll place it about a third of the way down the length of your mat. And then you can have a block or a pillow handy, something to rest the head into. So just make sure that all your props are in reach so that if you need to adjust anything, you can easily do so. And then you'll sit with your hips facing away from the bolster. And then place the bolster or the blanket roll right behind the heart center. So right around the space just below your underarms, right across the mid and upper back. And then reach for your block and place it underneath the head so that the head has ample support. Now you might like the block a little bit lower, a little bit higher. You can play around. And then you get to play around with the placement of the arms. You might feel comfortable resting onto your abdomen, onto the floor at your sides. Or my favorite is to extend the arms overhead and to have a a pillow or something else for it to rest into. The other option would be take the arms a little overhead and out to the side as well. In fact, I think I kind of like this one even better today. So it's always nice to experiment within the body and to really allow the body to guide the mind into which shape to hold. Any variation of the legs is welcomed and encouraged here. So you could begin with the knees bent, the feet onto the floor. This can often create a little more support to the low back, especially if you're working with any tenderness of the low back and spine. You could integrate a bound angle, soles of the feet out to the together, knees out to the side, or extend the legs long, whichever feels best in your body. And then from there, once you settle in, blink your eyes closed and notice how you feel. Fine tune anything that needs adjusting. You might draw the shoulders down the back body. And then begin to direct your mind's attention into the breath. As you breathe here, notice the fullness of the inhale. As you breathe out, notice the depth of the exhale. Continue to breathe and layer in, noticing also the spaces in between. How that there's a whole myriad of movement, even as you rest in stillness. The body expanding, growing wide with each breath you breathe in, and all that softens and retreats inward with each breath you breathe out. The simple act of focusing the mind's attention into the breath, observing, noticing, naturally anchors the mind. It begins to shift its way out of thinking, trying to figure things out, and into a more quiet and contemplative state. And this helps to slow the heart rate, lower blood pressure, and shift the nervous system from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state. And in this parasympathetic state, or what we call rest and digest, this is where the body begins to heal and recalibrate. We'll be here for a good 20 more breaths, give or take. At any point in time, if you need to adjust something, perhaps bring the hands at the side or to the abdomen or change something at all, feel free to do so. In whichever shape you're in, depth, variation. The objective here is to find and cultivate as much ease and effortlessness as you can. The mind wanders, just know that that's what the mind does. And every time you think or plan or try to figure something out, just simply come back to the breath again, redirect it, refocus it. Another 4 or 5 more breaths here. And with each breath you breathe, can you notice the sensation right at the top of the breath? Can you notice about the expanse of the chest, the heart? And then follow the exhale all the way to the bottom and notice how you feel right there at the bottom of the breath. This letting go, this release, this emptying. And if the arms are still overhead, draw them back along the sides. If the legs are stretched long, begin to bend the knees and walk the feet in. Take a moment there. Notice how you feel and if anything has begun to shift or change. And take your sweet time and then roll to your right or left side, whichever comes most easily and without any effort. And then with the strength of your hands, press your way forward and up into seated just for a moment or so. And then clear, you might like to have a block handy for this next pose, but we'll be using the bolster and the blanket roll in a very similar way. So you'll simply take your right hip fairly close to the bolster or blanket roll And then you'll tuck the blanket roll right underneath the side ribs. And so you can always, just depending on the length and the width of it, you can always adjust it accordingly. And then extend your right arm long and let your head rest into it. Now, if you prefer a block, you could always rest your head into a block and have arms here at the side. It's entirely up to you. And then extend your top arm, so your left bicep alongside the cheek and ear, as long as there's no pinchiness through the shoulder. And if there's any pinchiness, you can just simply take the hand to the side. The objective here is to create a gentle C shape with the spine, lengthening the top side body. Then with the legs, a couple options here. You could have the knees together. You might even place a block in between the knees. You could stretch the top leg or the left leg long in this case, and this will help to extend the fascia through the left side body, opening up the full lateral chain. Or you could have both legs extended long and in fact, feel free to play around with all three of those variations and see which is most inviting for you. Once you've found this shape that you wish to remain in, once again, close your eyes and turn your awareness inward. Check back in with the breath and notice how you feel. Can you feel the expanse of the left side body as you breathe in? And what can you feel softening or sinking as you breathe out? Continue to breathe deeply and to rest peacefully. Leave all responsibility of time to me. Let yourself fully off the hook. Just let go and breathe. Last couple breaths here. And then begin to transition your way onto the opposite side. Move at a glacial pace. You can simply roll your way through center or come back up to seated, settling your way onto the left hip. And then again, your choice, you can extend the left arm long, let the head rest into your bicep. Or you might use a cushion or a block, whichever feels most supportive. Feel free to adjust the bolster so that there's an optimal C shape through the spine, no pinchiness, no discomfort whatsoever, just a soft and subtle lengthening through the top side. And then feel free to experiment with your top arm, the right arm in this case. Bicep could come alongside the cheek and ear, or the arm could rest at your side. Feel free to feel both and see which is most inviting in your body. And then play with the legs. You might enjoy having the right knee bent or the left knee bent, the right leg stretched long, both knees together with the knees bent, or both legs together rather, knees bent, or both legs together, legs long. And once you've found your desired shape, close your eyes once again. Turn your awareness inward. Feel the breath moving in the body, reaching to the inner realms while anchoring the mind. Notice any parts of the body that might still feel engaged. Can the arms be any heavier? The hips, the legs, even the head. Another 4 or 5 more breaths here. And if the top arm is still extended all the way overhead, let it return gently to your side. Take a breath there. And then roll your way forward onto your abdomen so you'll be prone. And then place the blanket roll right beneath the ribs, or right underneath the ribs. And then from there, you can use your blocks if you wish. You could place them underneath the forearms as you rise the heart center up and through into Sphinx. If that's too high for you, you can always set the blocks aside and then return the elbows to the floor. I have these little T-Rex arms, so sometimes I feel like this just causes my shoulders to shrug forward. So you can play around with the blocks and kind of see how this feels not only in your spine, but also through your arms, through your shoulders. You want to maximize the space between the neck and shoulder area. So once you've found the shape that is most supportive for your body, settle in there. If there's any pinch to the low back, lengthen your tailbone slightly or even wiggle the hips. You can experiment with taking the legs a little bit wider till you feel maximum space in the low back. The design here is to create more lift through the mid and upper back. Telescope up and out of the crown to lengthen out both sides of the neck. And then either steady the gaze or blink the eyes closed. Direct your attention into the breath. In fact, do this with every single pose so that it almost becomes habitual. You find this shape, you turn inside. Feel the breath, and the breath can serve as a gateway connecting the body, the mind, a vessel to bring your awareness inside. One more breath in. Last full breath out. And then from there, bring your hands onto your blocks or to the mat. Press over the knees. Big toes to touch, knees draw out to the side. And then you can reposition your bolster. You can also skip the bolster. It's up to you. And then you'll lay forward into child's pose. Here, the torso will be draped right over the bolster. Either cheek or ear can come to the prop, to the bolster, or block, or mat. And this is one of my favorite postures, especially in creating length through the low back and spine. For me, even I feel a subtle stretch through the mid and upper back. You might feel the same, you might feel slightly different in your body. Just notice what is present for you. We'll be here for another 10 more breaths or so. Inside these breaths, can you feel the body, particularly the back body, expand with each breath you breathe in? Holding the breath at the very top just for a moment or so, embracing the sensation, allowing the inhale to naturally then spill over to the exhale, and watching and witnessing the response of the body as well as the mind, particularly at the bottom of the breath. Again, you might hold the breath out this time just to witness, observe, notice. And then moving at a snail's pace, shift your way forward into neutral table. If your spine is craving a little bit of movement, you could explore swaying the hips from side to side. You might prefer a little cat cow, jump roping the spine, or even swaying out through the hips. The legs are needing a release. Curl toes and press one leg back at a time, or explore down dog as an option. Then keeping your props pretty much exactly as they are, preparing for pigeon pose. So here's where it can be nice to have a little bolster or an additional pillow. Placing your right knee a little wider than the fleshy part of your hips. The right shin will be at about a 45-degree angle. It can be a little more, it can be even less. And then if there's any more than a fist width of space between your right hip and bottom and the floor, this is where wedging a little corner of a pillow underneath your hip can really support the body in releasing. If there isn't something to sink into, sometimes the body can add tension to support the joint so as to keep it from overstretching. Whereas when you put a little cushion underneath the hip, it can often give the body a sense of trust. And then as a result, the connective tissues are more apt to relax and release. If this is something, if this posture tends to tweak the knee or is too much on the hips, just notice that, honor that in your body. You can do the same shape, a reclining figure four, or even a figure four at the wall, or a deer pose, or some other hip opening of your choosing. And then from there, lay your torso forward. You can come onto your forearms or let the whole upper body be supported by the props beneath you. This is one of my favorite postures to open the outer hip as well as opening the inner groin. It also helps to create space around the sciatic nerve. And so if you're someone who experiences sciatica in their day-to-day, this is kind of like an apple a day for your sciatica. Check back in with a breath, and if it's shallowed, if the teeth are clenching, or if there's any resemblance in the body or breath, or any resemblance to tension at all, just see where you can soften. Or think of rewinding the pose a little bit, perhaps come up onto the forearms, add a little more cushion underneath the seat for added support, and watch the response of the breath, the body, and mind. It can be tempting to push, prod, or pull the body into a deeper shape, but the objective and the philosophy behind this style is to find a shape that's accessible about anywhere from 30 to 70% of your range of motion, and to relax the body amidst the sensation till the sensation dissolves. When the sensation dissolves, that's when there's the deep connective tissue begins to elongate, the nervous system begins to recalibrate. And now begin to rise back up, shifting your way back to a three-legged table or down dog, pedaling out the feet and encouraging the blood to flush right back into your right toes. Alternatively, you could come to your seat, swing both legs forward. Then when you're feeling called to move on to the left side, begin to head your way in. As you move symmetrically through the body, know that there's that asymmetry typically exists. And so what you might need on the left side might be different than the right. So always give yourself permission to accommodate, letting the mind follow the guidance of the body. Take another breath in, follow it to the very, very top. Feel the breath empty completely. Take one more cycle of breath, just like that. Breathe in till you feel the skin on the body expand. Breathe out till you notice everything soften. And then from there, rise back up onto your hands. Press back again into three-legged table, three-legged dog, or you could swing both legs forward. Feel free to move organically in any way that helps to balance the body and wash any after image away. Then from there, place your blocks towards the front corners of your mat, setting them aside, but also within reach. You can also set your little pillow off to the side and then come to where you'll take your bolster, spin it around and run it lengthwise again. We'll be coming into prone once again, this time placing the bolster across or the blanket roll the front of the hips to facilitate releasing the back even further. I should say, however, if you need to pee any, you'll need to pee a whole lot after this. It can put a little pressure on the bladder. So if you need to head to the washroom, feel free to do so. And you can play around, just sort of rock the hips a little bit from side just to help free up the low back. And then let or reach for your blocks from there and tuck them right underneath the shoulder heads. Then if you wish your pillow to support the front of the head, you are more than welcome to. And you can play around with the positioning of the hands. They can be here in a cactus arm shape or goalpost shape, or you can set them straight back, your choice. And then slowly begin to make your way back to kneeling. You might even press through child's pose. See how that feels through the low back and spine. And then begin to make your way onto your back. So make sure all your props are easily within reach. As you make your way onto your back, reach for your strap. Place it over the mound of the right foot. I'm using my dog's leash right now. He'll probably come running in a second. And then wrap the strap around your hands so that you have a good solid anchor. You can start with the left knee bent, the right leg up to the sky, and a little flex through the ankle so that the lengthening comes all the way into the lower leg, particularly the calf, Achilles, and right into the sole of the foot. A little bend, micro bend into the right knee can help support the back of the knee and the insertion point of the hamstrings. And then notice if the low back is hollowed out. If it is, just simply reestablish the natural curve of the low back, almost creating a little baby arc, like a little pea could or marble could roll underneath. Reach till you feel a depth of stretch that is sensational but sustainable at the same time. Let the shoulders get heavy, the eyelids heavier, and then turn your awareness back into the breath. Breathe in full. Breathe out empty. Notice how this feels. And if sensation has begun to dissipate, you might reach into a new edge. If it's a little more than you want to, than what feels sustainable, you can rewind the posture. If the front of your left hip is craving a release, you can straighten your left leg. We're here for another 5 more breaths. And now take your strap into your left hand. Take your right thumb to your right hip crease and draw the right hip down to create a little bit of an anchor. With this anchor in place, begin to draw your right leg about 2/3 of the way over to the left side. Again, keep a little bend into the right knee. Imagine you had a rubber band hooked to the outside of your right ankle and outside of your right hip. And then begin to reach in opposition, almost like you could bring your right buttock to the floor, even though it's lifted. Just imagine it so. And then at the same time, imagine you could wedge your right foot to the upper left corners of your space. Helps to target the IT band, create more balance to the outer hip, the low back, as well as protecting and creating balance to the knee. We're just here for 2, 3 more breaths. Draw the right leg back overhead now. And slip the strap off the right foot, straighten both legs and lower them alongside, or lower the right leg alongside the left. Take inventory of how you feel through the entire right leg compared to the left, the right hip compared to the left, the right low back compared to the left, even your right shoulder and neck area compared to the left. Then evening things out, walk the feet in, knees bent, slip the strap or dog leash in my case over the left foot. Play around again with the depth of stretch, a little flexion of the of the left ankle, little micro bend in the back knee, reestablish the natural curve of the low back and spine. Reach till you feel sensation as well as, I want to say stability, sensation and sustainability. And then breathe. Cultivate a deep sense of peace and ease. Infusing the shape with breath, the breath to quiet the mind, reconnect the body as well as the mind, to recalibrate and to heal. Take another breath in here, another breath out. One more cycle of breath, just like that. Breathe in full. Breathe out empty. Then take the strap into the right hand this time, left thumb to the left hip crease, right leg stretched long. Begin to guide your left leg, again, about 2/3 of the way to the right side. Extend the left heel to the upper right corners of your space while simultaneously creating an anchor through the left hip. And now draw the left leg back overhead, reach the toes momentarily over the nose. Then release the left foot alongside the right, straightening both legs. A breath or two here to notice how you feel. Then setting your strap off to the side, reach for your block and place it underneath your head on the lowest setting so that the bottom ridge of the block is right at the base of the skull, and you'll have a slight tuck of the chin as a result. Take a moment here to walk the shoulders beneath the heart, adjust the hips, the low back in any way that is supportive for your body. And then let the body get super heavy and the head to really begin to sink into the block. Feel as the sides of the neck, all the muscles that support the head and neck begin to soften. With the weight of the head heavier than ever, begin to gently turn the head to the right side without lifting it up. Feel the bottom edge of the block massaging the base of the skull. Turn the head back slowly through center, and then rotate the head gently to the left side. Draw the head slowly back through center, and then rotate the head left and right. You can pause anywhere along the way, especially if there is a sweet spot that's longing to release. Another time or two on either side, just giving yourself an opportunity to slow things down to balance it out. Eventually bringing the head back to center and then pause there, one breath. Then release the block out from underneath the head and neck and set yourself up for Shavasana. So any shape at all for your Shavasana. You might be craving just laying exactly as you are, legs stretched long. You could even experiment with knees bent, slightly knocked inward to create a slight internal rotation, balancing out the hips, the opening of the hips. You might like legs up the wall or draped over your favorite piece of furniture or props of your choosing. And once you've found a sweet spot, linger there, breathe, and let go. Om Namo 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 Anjanina Danaya Jaya Sitaram Jai Jai Baba Hanuman Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Begin to deepen the breath. Layer in a big luxurious stretch, reaching arms overhead, wiggling fingers, toes, rolling out the wrists, the ankles. Hug your knees into the chest now. Decompress the low back and spine and give yourself a warm embrace. Then gently rock from side to side, back and forth. And then with a little momentum, find your way all the way onto your side, resting comfortably in the fetal position. With the strength of your hands, begin to press your way forward and up, coming to seated or kneeling. Then bring your hands to heart center or into prayer above the or just above the heart and bow slightly inward. Check in with how you feel right here in this moment. Carry this with you off the mat into your days as you live through your yoga. Thank you so much. Namaste.